Welcome back. Today we have an extra special treat for everybody. My guest today is a producer. He is a singer-songwriter. He is a multi-instrumentalist. He is the founder of Gardenhouse Records and their premier event, Gardenfest. He's a philosopher. He's a dad. He is a good man. My guest, Freddy Larrosa.
Thank you so much, brother. I'm super excited to be here. Thank you.
Man, thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. It's my honor. It's my honor to have you. Since I first heard you play music, I just have always, been interested in how you're playing music and how you go about it and the different philosophy that you have. With Garden Fest, I've definitely, been an active participant in that, at least being like as an attendee. And I just am I'm very moved by it, moved by the way that your philosophy around music and bringing it to people, spiritually and, for not necessary, it's not, the profit thing it's not, doing it for commercialization. It's doing it for the vibration and the frequency. And I feel that.
Yeah, it's a mission, and when I felt this awoke within me, it was something that I couldn't run away from. Certainly, I kind of chased fame and fortune and things like that for quite a bit of my life, and running through my ego, and wanting to be seen and recognized and have the money, the fame, and all the things that came with that. And then my spiritual awakening started to begin, and that's been an ongoing journey of almost 10, 12 years. And when I started to realize the power, that vibration that music had on myself first, and how that was so important in my upbringing, and then realized, as I became a father too, how that would affect my children in their upbringing, it became a very deep mission to create music and to create vibrations that will uplift the human soul and that can actually bring about healing as well from, traumatic experiences. And we all carry some of that in different ways. And so I feel like music has that potential and power to lift people up and lift their souls up and help them move through difficult situations.
For me personally, music showed me how to dance. It allowed me how to dance, and that act of dancing, the freedom that has brought me in my life is like second. I wouldn't be here today without it. And so the music activated that in me, which is really cool. It's sometimes to be able to figure out that I, using the vibration like you're saying to get to that point. Now you were chasing fate because you were born in Ecuador.
I was born in Ecuador, yes, in Quito, the capital.
Quito, okay,
Yeah.
cool, man. So just tell me, give me a, the 10-minute story of your background of where you were born in Ecuador and you said you were chasing fame and fortune, and just bring me through that a little bit and how you ended up getting to the point where you decided that you wanted to use music and the vibration of it to, help people heal and help them connect with themselves.
Yeah. I was born in Ecuador. My parents are both musicians. My father comes from a family of like 7 or 8 brothers. My grandfather was kind of the patriarch and main musician, and they're all from Uruguay. And so they carry a very long lineage of folklore and music in that side of my family. But my mother also is a beautiful artist and beautiful singer as well. So both my parents would play in South America in places called peñas. And peñas would be these incredible, just like large halls where people would get together and listen to folklore. And back then it was the music that was like counterculture and counter politics and stuff like that, against back then there was a lot of dictatorships and things happening in South America. So it was all the people against all of that and, just like deep philosophical things that were coming up. And anyway, they met in that realm. And story says I was in my mom's belly. She was still singing up until like days before I was born, and playing shows and stuff. So I've been around that since conception. And my father would play guitar, on my mom's belly so I could hear it. And so year and a half, story says, my mom says that I picked up my dad's guitar and started playing, some of the songs that he would play. So eventually my grandfather caught on to that and he bought me my my little first guitar and like tailor-made kind of for my size. And that was it. That was the beginning of a very deep love story with music. You know, I'd fall asleep on the speaker kind of thing as a kid, listening to Silvio Rodriguez, which was one of my favorite artists and influences in my music. So, you know, long story short,
It's beautiful that you know, that's a as a guy who's not as musically inclined, you know, you know, I can play a guitar, but you know, no one's gonna really want to listen necessarily. But I love music, and you know, when my wife was pregnant, you know, we were very active in you know, putting the music there, and you know, picking out the right songs and that we liked, and playing that, and that was, you know, so you said, as the story goes, like, you know, I think you were definitely connected to it. Your mom was the one who was singing
oh
and
yeah,
playing, and you know,
it's like
your old man's
yeah.
right there too, dude. Holy hell, yeah, that's a giddy up.
And even to this day, I feel that connection in such a deep way where it's almost like I can't live without it. It's almost like it's, you know, you talk about addiction. It's like,
Yes.
this is my deepest addiction. I cannot live without music, and I cannot go a day without being with it and listening to it. It brings so much soothing and peace to my life. And since I started learning about what the power of vibration really was, I was able to also curate the things that I listened to over the years as I started to understand this more, to actually help me in my healing journey. And that's how it all started. My whole changing, as you know, going back to that question of how it went from like chasing fame and fortune to using music as a means to heal. It came from that place itself of when I started to hear the first artists that, you know, really impacted me, and their lyrics and their music actually penetrated my soul in ways that I could not explain. It was just something that really awoke within me, something that I had been missing and needing. And it was a message of hope, and it was a message of, I got this, I can do this. You know, I struggled with addiction for many years in my life, and, you know, anger tendencies and just a lot of trauma. And from that place, from coming and growing up in a third world country and things like that, like there was a lot of anger in my soul, and there was a lot of hurt, and I was a victim of all of the things that life had brought upon me. And then I started listening to, you know, I started with reggae music, you know, and people like Bob Marley. And then I met, you know, I heard music of artists like Mike Love come through, which is a more modern, you know, I call him a prophet because of the music that's coming through and the messages that come through. They're so important for the times that we're in. And that really shifted something in me and showed me, wow, I have this medium, right, where I can share music or vibrations or talk through these podcasts, right? And this has tremendous power over how I can affect somebody's consciousness and how I can affect somebody's vibration. And so the way that it affected me showed me that I also had that power to express things and to transmute my emotions into something that would actually bring about healing, and not just necessarily complaining about my life, or, you know, just like vomiting all of this pain and suffering that I felt, but rather taking all of that and integrating it in a way where, instead of just complaining about my life, how can I find solutions, and how can I write stories for myself or letters to myself? And that's a lot of what my music is a lot of things that I write is as if I'm speaking to myself, so that I can help myself remind my soul of the things that I need to know to heal. And that's a very beautiful, strong process that has helped me to believe in the power and the strength of music to be able to heal, because it has helped my own soul heal. And from that place, I've also seen, when I share it with other people, that it gives them a very similar effect. Even though it's not their story, the vibration and the healing aspects of what it's done for me and the reflection of that in my own life, I feel also transmits it, or comes across to another person who's seeking very similar things, right? Especially if we're in our journey to discover our souls and our purpose and what our beliefs are in this world. Music is a great medium that also helps us to define these beliefs. And so it's a great responsibility, and it's a great gift to be able to share my own process in hopes that that can inspire somebody else as well to find their truth and find what brings them peace and what helps them transmute the pain that we feel.
Let me ask you, later on today in this show, we're going to have you play some music. If you've decided which songs, those, you know, songs you're going to play with us, would you be able to take us through now that one of those processes for one of the songs we're going to get listened to later?
the writing process of a song.
Yeah, just how this is this. You took pain and it's a story, and then you create it to something that is a story that's positive, and that's what comes out in the music. Would you be able to like describe like that process at all?
Yeah, sure. I feel like I'm being called to share a song that I wrote many years ago called Phoenix, and it's on my first album called Children of the Light. And Phoenix is an interesting song because it has a theme of like depression, and it's themed on focused on like a feminine, actually. What would you say, like the protagonist of the song that I'm singing for is actually a feminine spirit, or a woman in that case. And I wrote this song for somebody that I loved and love very deeply to this day, but just things have shifted, right? But for someone that I was very deeply in love with, and I wrote it as a means to like express something that I would see in this woman as far as like her power, the goddess inside her, and how she wasn't able to see that for herself. So the song has the theme of like there is depression, there is some sadness that it starts with, and it seems like, the song starts with the phrase "seems like the end." Troubles seem to take your mind, or shadows seem to penetrate your mind, and you'd think, oh man, here it goes. It's going to be a very heavy song. And I like to use the theme of darkness too, because I think life is the journey of the light and dark. And when it comes to transmutation and the art of that, the only way, like if I bring light, and at least this is the way that I see things, is if I want to bring light to somebody who has never known anything but darkness, it's very hard to get that message across, I find. Like if I'm ultra positive, if I'm ultra love and like light, and this is something that we want to bring forth, but for somebody who's never even seen a little bit of that, somebody who's grown up in extreme violence, or, just like extreme poverty, and all they know is that, and all they know is violence and things that aren't so positive, it might be hard to get the message across. So for me, the process is, how can I create something that's relatable? And we've all been through the process of being deep in the mud and being deep in the darkness, and also walking ourselves out of it, right? So a lot of my journeys and the songs that I write come from a place of, it starts in the darkness. It starts in a lacking of love, or a fear or something like that. But then how do I overcome that? And how do I bring all of that energy into the light? So a lot of those songs are a journey that takes you through the process of, here's the anger, here's the darkness, or here's something that may seem like it's off, but here's also a message that's very important that you can hear, and it can actually help you move out of that darkness. And so I always write music in hopes that it recognizes where I'm at in the moment, right? Because even when I speak about somebody else in my songs, I know that I'm also talking about my own personal process, right? And understanding that I do have this divinity, this power within me to change my life, to change the ways that I perceive things and the ways that I show up for myself, for the people that I love. So my process is often like that. The way that I write is always different, though. That's depending on when the muse comes and depending when the song comes. I'm not somebody I don't chase songs. I don't sit down and say, today I'm going to write a song. I maybe should. Maybe I would write a lot more songs if I did that. But I like songs to come organically in a way where it's like, oh, I'm feeling this very deeply in my soul, and suddenly there's something that needs to be expressed. And so that often comes in many different ways, and it comes in different times in my life, and depends on where I am in my mindset, and depends on where I am, in general. It's all like a perfect storm that has to happen for this song to come through, and I have to be open enough to receive it as well. So sometimes it's easier, sometimes it's harder, but depending on my own personal process. Like if I'm in the mud, sometimes all I can write is the parts that are in the mud, and then the second part will come when I'm out of the mud and when I'm feeling better, and then I'm like, oh, here's the tie-in to make that, come into the light, and that can take some time, maybe even years. My first album took about 7 years to produce, and it was a journey of that healing process. And so when that started, my decision to make music that was a little bit more healing too, it also came hand in hand with when I was exposed to the world of plant medicine. And I started to go to ceremonies and learn more about this. And I went like head first into it. And, I really needed some healing. So
Yeah.
I was in it. And from that, there was huge shifts that started to happen in my life. And I decided from then on that my music would be intentional, that I wouldn't put out anything that wasn't going to uplift and that wasn't going to actually help another human being feel better in their bodies, feel better in their minds. And that's been my journey since then.
What a wonderful mission, and it's really neat, like that somebody, you know, there's a difference, you know, because right, like if you are somebody who, you know, puts out takes one, you know, one album is going to take 7 years, which is like the true journey of like some people going through certain types of growth and the journey and the story that needs to be told to uplift because you needed to go through it. Now, like, but that's not commercial. You know, to commercialize something, you need to be able to produce and have a project and get it done. And so it's like it's just really goes to your point, which is I think is really wonderful and beautiful that you know you're producing music, you know, for the potential for personal transformation, you know, for yourself and for others, you know, opposed to you know strictly profit and you know making money and commercialization of it.
Yeah, I mean, we all want to eat, right? And that's important. But I
I
feel,
think we all need to eat. You know, that is it's a thing that we need to do. You know, and
yeah,
like there's needs that we need. You know, for sure.
yeah. I mean, I have a family, and I have to make things work out for them. But I also come again, you know, from a place where we didn't have much growing up, you know, and that is also a very important part to me because as I was growing up and I was aspiring to become an artist and a musician, you know, I had support from my family and things like that, but we didn't have the means to like send Freddie to music school or blah, blah, blah. So I never really learned what I'm doing. I kind of just had to keep learning on my own. And that led me on this beautiful journey too of all the things that I do know and that I have learned. I'm so free to share it because it came to me in that way as well, where I, you know, I sought it, I went looking for it. And then when I did have that, I've never been somebody to kind of keep it to myself. I always wanted to, because I knew my own story. And growing up, I didn't have as many opportunities. And, you know, we live in a different time where maybe 20 years ago, you would get picked up by a producer, right? And, oh, yeah, we're going to discover you and give you a record deal and blah, blah, blah. That doesn't exist anymore, you know, or it does, but it's very hard to tap into that. And again, the philosophy of what that means, right? Making it in the music industry versus what we're trying to grow here in a more organic way. It definitely... If I wanted to create music just to sell music, just to make profit, that vibration is not in alignment with the vibration of the organic side of creating music for the art, creating music to create something that is sacred and spiritual, right? Does that make sense? It's like there's a difference between a mechanical process that happens in like the mainstream industry of music where it's like this is a formula that works and this is what we're going to do with most artists on these platforms, right? Depending on the genre, it doesn't matter, but like there's formulas and it doesn't matter whether it's good or bad for people. It just, if it sells, this is the formula that we're going to use and it's going to make us a ton of money. But then you do look at what mainstream media is offering people. And for the most part, it's violence, it's sex, it's, you know, lust. It's like all of these things that I personally wouldn't want my kids to grow up at age 10 or 11, even younger than that, listening to all these messages and being
Wet
programmed.
ass pussy.
It's like,
Yeah.
it's scary. And I grew up with this stuff and I was chanting these things. And so now imagine what that's doing.
It's scary. It's scary, but yeah, we grew up with it too, right? I mean, yeah, the violence part of it, the sex part of it too, you know, for sure. But more so like I was like more violence, you know, the stuff that we, you know, we're a similar age.
Yeah.
You know, there's some stuff, you know, Cisco the Thong Song, you know, there's stuff like there was some sexualization,
Absolutely.
and then you know, as you got older, you know, like the Little John and those guys, they started to sexualize women for sure. You know, that was a big thing of it. So it's what we I
remember being 8 years old, something like that, maybe like 10 or 11. And in Ecuador, when you're in like 6th grade, you go to Galapagos, to the Galapagos Islands. And it's kind of like a thing, you know, every
cool.
6th grader gets to go to Galapagos with their school tour and blah, blah, blah.
Just like a day trip?
No, you get to go for like a week, you know, it's a really cool thing. I don't remember much, but one thing I do remember is we're like sixth graders going to like a matinee club, you know, and it's a legit adult club just like opened up during the day for these kids to party. And like they're bumping all this like dirty reggaeton and like, and I'm in 6th grade. And so it's like, now that I look back at those things, I'm like, man, like the things that we were listening to and the music that we were like bumping and grinding to and like playfully having sex on the dance floor, like at age, what, 6th graders are what, 10, 11 years old?
Yeah.
For me, like I would not want to see my daughter bumping and grinding the way that I was when I was a youth because and my parents had no notion of what vibration was doing to us, right? Like this is something that is
Dude, wow.
relatively very new, you know, like I was sharing with you earlier, like Masaru Emoto and his experiments with water and vibration and how that affects consciousness. That's only coming forth in like the 90s, right? And so we're growing up with all these things and our parents are like, yeah, this is just music, right? Like my kid's just listening to heavy metal. And, you know, you have two different factions of like the more religious side of things where, you know, that was very more like cracked on. That's the devil's music and this and that. But then my parents weren't necessarily controlling a lot of that. It was like, well, he's a teenager. He's going to listen to what he's going to listen to.
Yeah.
And I wasn't aware of how that was affecting my mood, how I was probably depressed and angry and all of these things because I'm constantly feeding my psyche with those messages, right? And you think about not music, but also movies too, right? And so growing up, I'm looking at, you know, Scarface, Al Pacino doing all the cocaine in the world. And I'm thinking, this is really cool. I'm going to go do this. And so age 16, I'm on the streets looking for drugs. And then my whole rest of my teenage years was addiction, right? Well into my 20s until I found plant medicine. And I could say that 90% of that probably comes from all the programming that I saw on TV and listened to on music. And I was like, this is really cool. And nobody was there to tell me, actually, this is not. And this is going to throw you in this really long spiral of hurting yourself and hurting others and lying and deceiving just to get your fix of these drugs that are being pushed on us through media. And that's just one aspect of like what media is doing to us on a day-to-day basis. And like kids are watching TV and kids are playing video games and kids are listening to music that is leading them on that path of more violence, of less awareness of the natural world and connection to the natural world as well. And that's very important to me as well. And it's a part of my music tremendously of how incorporating the natural world and the power of the natural world and the spiritual world, because these are things that we don't necessarily grow up knowing. It's like, if you grow up in a religious background, you'll have a certain story that's told to you and that's what you adhere to. But I was also blessed that I kind of thought for myself from a very young age, and I didn't want to conform to a certain story. And so I looked into a lot of different philosophies and this and that, and I created kind of my own understanding of the world. And a lot of that for me is rooted in nature, and it's rooted in my connection to nature and spirit and the spirits of nature. And so the music comes from that as well, is inspired by that as well, by the way that plants work. Like I have a song that's coming in my second album. It's in Spanish and it's called Cosmic Flowers. And it has a lot to do with how, you know, not just plant medicine itself, you know, the psychedelics and things like that, but just plants in general, how they are also affected by the ways that we show up for them. And how if I'm planting something and I'm growing food and I'm singing to my plants and I'm loving on them and I'm giving this vibration, it is notably going to offer more than a plant that I don't give that kind of treatment. So in these studies are there that show that consciousness can affect the molecular structure of water, and we are predominantly made out of water.
Via vibration.
Sorry, yes. So the vibration, but consciousness itself. So like that experiment that I was talking to you about is not something that he spoke into a petri dish of water and said, I love you. He wrote it. So the consciousness of something that was written on it, that vibration alone of the word that was spoken, like that was written onto this petri dish, that affected the molecular structure when it froze, and it was all distorted.
Yeah, of course, like because our energy field is giving that off, even because we're just thinking it. Like a lot of people just say, like my thoughts are, you know, you are your thoughts, you know, you can be your thoughts, you know, and that's why you need to be able to control them or have an understanding of them. Because like we you know, you can't really control your first one always, but you can control your second thought. And so by, you know, using that, or you can, you know, if you really want to get into a state where you are controlling your, you know, I bet that he really was conscious when he was, you know, saying I love you to the, you know, writing that down. It's so fascinating.
And that probably, like, tapping into that is how powerful that is when intention, right? Because I can say words too. I can say I love you, and my intention's not there. And often that's how we express love in many ways in our society. It's, oh, we love each other. Yeah. And then meanwhile, we're, you know, talking shit behind each other's back and like all of these things. So when you think about intention and how we use our words with intention, for me, that's a very important part of the music and most things that we do. Like if I sit down and I have a conversation with you, I want to be intentional with what I'm saying and not just speak words to speak words because it's there, because now I am aware of the power that these words have. And I believe that the more that we become aware of this, even in our own daily basis, like how I create my own reality is going to start to change too, right? So I grew up complaining about my life, my whole life. That was my culture of like, oh, just complain. You're a victim of the system. You're a victim of everything. It's everybody else's fault. And that was my reality, right? And like, oh, God doesn't love me. And like all of these things that I'm speaking into existence are just continuing to manifest because that is my belief. And as long as I'm speaking that belief out with the intention of, oh, I believe this with my whole heart, then I'm just creating more of that for myself. So my whole life's journey since I started my healing journey, since I started that path of like self-discovery, has turned into becoming so aware of like the thought process and then how I express that, because I know now that I'm creating that as I speak it into existence. And so the music is that too. And so imagine how mantras work, right? When you're meditating and you're saying these mantras and they have these effects on you. Imagine what you're doing with music. And it's a mantra, right? You go to the concert and you're singing somebody's song, like 10,000 people singing an angry song. What does that vibration do versus 10,000 people singing, I love you, right? Like, and so for me, it's very important how that actually does affect, society in general, and how we're living in a society that is so deeply rooted in that it's going to take some time to actually deprogram how much of that we go to, how much violence and horror and lust and all of these things that aren't necessarily good for our bodies and our energetics, right? It's going to take quite a while to like reprogram ourselves to come back into the light. And part of the music is that, right? Like it's inviting people. Children of the Light is the name of my album, is to invite people to remember that they are children of the light, that we do come from that. And darkness is a part of it. And don't get me wrong, I love the darkness because that's the part that allows me to understand my light even more. But I don't want to dwell in the darkness, and I don't want to promote darkness as a positive thing. I personally want to live in a world where violence is not just something that we're okay with, and like we all turn a blind eye to it because it's okay and we have no control over it, right? But if I have a voice and I understand the power of that vibration that comes out of me, then that actually gives me the responsibility to express these things and to talk about them. And a lot of the philosophies that I follow and that I listen to and that have moved me talk precisely about these things, of how we have the power and the responsibility to change things. And if we don't become aware, and if we're not knowing of what is actually affecting our consciousness and why we're living in the times that we're living in, I think for me, one of the most important things and reasons as to why we're here as a society, right, in the place that we are, has a lot to do with art and culture, because that does move the way that the world works, right? And so from that place, you just see the common thread in like what kind of art is being put out in front of us on a daily basis and what's being mostly promoted for us. And it's anger, and it's violence, and it's fear, and it's deception and confusion. And from that place, it's very hard to raise kids in a world where you're bombarded by so much of that. And so it's kind of like a counterculture thing, right? To like create music that will counter that will actually tip the scales at some point where we can actually live in this world that we're trying to create. And if my thoughts create reality, if that's actually a truth, then I want to stay in as positive of a reality as I can. And I have to keep anchoring that in with my message, with my music, and the vibration that I put out.
Cannabis products are becoming more popular every day. Whether you're looking for the best night's sleep, trying to mitigate daily stress, or just trying to enjoy some laughter with friends, OG Cannabis is the store for you. OG Cannabis has an unbiased approach that is unique and simple. Unlike the competition, they don't sell their own manufactured products, but instead proudly showcase the best vendors across Maine. A dispensary like no other. Come and visit today at 18 American Way, Elliott, Maine. OG Cannabis. Oh, and don't forget to use my promo code, Dr. BeeWell. See you guys there. Giddy up. How specific are you with what music you listen to and like what you take in? You're like super specific about it, and you don't want to take in anything that might, throw you off or whatever. Because I'm pretty, I said, I like the songs that I like, and a lot of them are generally happier songs, just because they make me happier, and I like that giddy up that it's going to give me.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't always, I'm not always like a super intentional about it.
Yeah, I fluctuate back and forth too. You know, on a bad day when I'm feeling rage, it doesn't hurt me to like go and bump some heavy metal. Like I'll honor that part too. I
Hmm.
try to stay away from as much of like super profane, like something that's like not necessarily good at all, right?
Hmm.
Like, or
Yeah.
it's hard to judge those things. Some people are like, yeah, well, that's my jam, and I don't want to judge anybody from if that works for you too, and that's cool. I've met so many like metalheads and people who love metal, and we have such a distorted understanding of like rock music and metal, and there's some of the most peaceful people that I know. They're like the coolest people in the world, and they just listen to angry music. And I see that also as like that is also an outlet, right? So there's a balance that we can have by understanding why and the intentions of why we're doing this, right? Like if I'm angry, I want to transmute that. I want to express the anger. I don't think it's wrong to express it. I think when we're just hyper focused on this is the one music that I'm going to listen to or that I'm going to put out, uh, I find that to be very tricky when there's no options to see the other side of things. So then my mind is only thinking about the one thing. And now to answer that question, do I expose myself to music like that? I often try not to because I know the power that it has over me and what it's doing to my psyche. So obviously I do tailor everything that I listen to in a way where I want to listen to uplifting music all day so that I can feel good in my body. So that even when I'm feeling off, like instead of gravitating towards the angry rock or whatever, most of the time I'm like, oh, let me throw on some medicine music because I need the vibration so I can remember the light, so I can remember the love, you know?
Oh, dude, 100%. That's for me. It's so funny because like sometimes the music that I listen to that I get happiness from, it's not always super positive. You know, it's just like and I think you want to know what maybe I'm because I don't necessarily listen to the lyrics as much. I'm listening to the music, the instrumentals to be able
Mm,
to dance and move my body to it.
hmm.
But I'm like, but maybe there's a message in it for me or something. Maybe that's what it is, and it's just trying to teach me something. But
Yeah.
that's the only thing I feel like sometimes I listen to music that's not like wouldn't be regarded as it has like a an upbeat beat, but um, there's a it's kind of like a maybe kind of sad, maybe it's sad. I don't know. I'm trying to figure
Yeah.
that out.
And sadness isn't a bad thing either, right? Like a lot of the music that I love is actually conveying sadness and things like that. And
Maybe it's helping me process it. Maybe it helps me process the sadness that I have or the grief that I have. It helps me process it, and I want to process it in a positive way through my body, which is normally when I'm listening to music is to dance.
yeah, you can relate to sadness, right? And that's something that it's beautiful when an artist can capture something that I can feel as my own as well, and like and understand that I can relate to that artist and say, "Wow, I felt that pain and this is helping me to actually move through my pain rather than to give me more pain." And so there's a I would say there's like a line there of like cuz sadness isn't necessarily a negative thing. I think that's bad for you. It's like that's actually I think it's a
A
positive
very
thing that
healthy, positive
yeah,
thing,
that we're here to
especially if you.
experience, right?
Hmm.
I think things start to get a little twisted in a place where like sex and how we talk about it and how we express that, and I'm not against sex and I'm not against healthy forms of expressing it, right? But when it's being exposed to children who aren't ready to understand these things, I think that's where I draw the line too. It's like, if you're an adult and you're very well in awareness of what this music is doing to you, then fine, go listen to whatever you want. There's no judgment there. But if we are forcing this on our kids and we're forcing this on the youth, we're not giving them a chance to discern because kids are impressionable and they're going to trust the adults that are supposed to know what they're doing to guide them into a place of, safety. And I don't feel that that's safe if, an 8-year-old or even 5-year-olds, right? Like I see sometimes in my own family, like my nieces and nephews, they're bumping to this like reggaeton music and things that are completely obscene that they shouldn't be listening to
Hmm. Hmm.
because it's not of their age, right?
Right.
I don't think that sexuality is a wrong thing. I don't think that, you know, there are places for this, right? And if it's in the ears of my young kids because it's just on national public radio and things like that, I don't think that that's fair game for these kids who
It's
can't
not.
discern what is good and what is bad.
No, it should be like a more natural thing that happens, and yeah, it's all like you said, dude. There's a lot of manipulation that goes into it. Let's flood the society or the population, with this stuff that's going to keep them addicted. Like, like I mean, I think about this a lot. I don't think about this a lot, but people talk about it a lot, and it's, like porn. Like and the thing, I don't have like I don't. Sure, every once in a great moon, I'll like, maybe I'll look, but not even really. I'm And but people are like, there's like an addiction to it, I guess. Like people are seriously addicted. And like the young kids, I think, are really addicted because the way that they've manipulated that. And it's like, that is such a horrible thing to bring into society. And when like back in the day, you used to have to like go and like, you'd have to go and face somebody, right? You'd have to get the nudie mag, or you'd have to go into the store and,
Yeah.
see your car was parked there. So there was like a little bit of a barrier to it, and which was okay. And if you were an adult and you wanted to explore that, maybe that's fine, sure. But now it's on everybody's phone.
Yeah.
So like, it's probably like kids that are so young, and like we were all trying to, look at boobs and butts, and we were all trying to do that stuff when we were younger. So I don't know if it's like, it is bad because it's way like more accessible, and like, opposed to just like a naked picture of a girl. Now you're watching like a hardcore porn video, and it's, it's easy to access on your computer, and your parents can try their best to take it off. It's just that, that sucks, because that's like, you can say that that's violence too, right? Like, because there's some violence that, like, that's the other thing too. Is I remember being a kid, and there's like a few videos and like a thing, there's this thing called Faces of Death. That was like this video that would, you'd have to get like the VHS copy, and people would like, it was like people like dying, it was like horrible.
Yeah.
Now, dude, that stuff's accessible at your fingertips whenever you want it. If you want to, go to some, website, and you can find, people being killed in the most horrible ways. And like, I remember I even texted my friend yesterday, like, imagine if we grew up in this era. And like, cause I mentioned one of our specific friends who used to like try to get us to watch all this, fucked up shit. And maybe I should stop swearing, because that's you're talking about this vibration. I kind of like to swear because it gives passion to things. So I don't necessarily mind it, but now I'm thinking about it a little bit more. But he, this kid, would show us the stuff, and it was violent. And so it's like, imagine what he would do today. It would be I'd be exposed to so much more. And then I think about my young son, and I'm like, this sweet, innocent soul, some friend, is eventually gonna have access to something that maybe I'm blocking, but I'm taking care of, or I'm smart, I'm trying to have a smart control over it, but that it just gets exposed, so that's why we just gotta flood the world with light and love, so that like when that stuff does happen, they know where to come back to, and they know they have a safe space to be able to be like, hey, this happened and it didn't make me feel very good, and and I want to be able to talk about it instead of like burying it and becoming a thing, in somebody's life, because that's likely what happened with some of us potentially.
Yeah, I mean, and you're hiding these things obviously from a young age, because it's not necessarily what you should be doing. Like there's already that inner knowing that's like,
the intuition, like you mentioned.
And so when you think about being exposed at such a young age to that, like just what it does to the brain and how it affects our minds. Like you're talking about porn, and how, I remember I was like maybe 8 or 9 years old when I was exposed to that. And that I don't think that that's a very appropriate age for anyone to like start seeing like hardcore porn, man. And these were things that I could access back then. It's like antenna TV. And when antenna TV was around, and you could like tap into these like porn channels from time to time.
Yeah, you maybe see like a boob though, that's what it was, like a pixelated boob.
And that's
like,
what you'd go and look for. And, and there was no control over those things, right? Because our parents didn't even know sometimes, because they're at work, and you're at home, and you're just flipping through channels, and suddenly that was the day that you got signal on the porn channel. And now you're addicted to it, and now you're over masturbating, and now you're doing all these things, and now your conception and your understanding of sex is completely distorted, right? And so then we think sex is violent. We think sex is about submission and choking and like all of the things that were being shown, when in fact it's like there can be those elements, of course, but like sex is a lot more broad than that. And it's a lot deeper than that, and it has a deeper spiritual meaning to it.
I think it's a deeper spiritual, like, sex is like the reason that, I think that people always say like we have sex to procreate, and I do think that that's very true, but I also think it was always like designed to be something that would be like a pleasurable thing for us to do and to connect with it, another human being, but then also to procreate. And so, it's like something that, is very broad and very needs to be widely respected and you're not taught that at all. Like there's nothing,
No, it took me, well into my 30s when I started to, work with one of my mentors, Aaron Kleinerman, and he's a tantra teacher, and, does a lot of beautiful men's work and things like that. And through some of the tantra teachings that he offers, that's when I really started to like, oh, like this is what sexuality is about. It's about like harnessing this sacred divine energy that we have within. And it's funny because sexuality goes hand in hand with creation, right? Like your sex force, your life force is your creative force. So like if I have a healthy connection and sexual understanding of who I am and what my sexuality really is. And if I can harness that in a positive way, like the music, for example, then I can use all that sex energy instead of, masturbating in front of a laptop and watching porn all day. I can use that sexual energy to actually create, which is what it's meant to do, right? Like it's meant to create people. It's meant to create babies. But at the same time, if I'm harnessing that energy and I'm not ejaculating at all times and letting that life source just flow out of me freely with no direction, right? The difference between art and creativity is using that sexual energy with some direction, right? Instead of just busting it out and for nothing, now you're actually intentionally using it to bust out a great song. And so I'm using all that sex energy that could be used in negative ways towards myself and redefining what that is as well. And so it goes hand in hand with, it's a great thing that you brought sexuality up, because that's often, how we fall into addiction too, especially porn addiction, right? It's like we have all this sexual energy with this drive to create within us, but we haven't been given a direction as to how to create, right? And we've been given so much distraction that we're not even seeking the very things that are there for us, like music, like art, creativity is always there for us, but we're so far from it, as a society, because of things like video games and porn and Netflix, right? And movies and all of these different things. So, the whole intention of Gardenhouse Records and then Gardenfest and what we're creating through that is actually to create spaces where we can come and tune into more of that and tune into like, wow, look at this whole community of people filled with a bunch of artists that have been doing, their inner work and are brave enough to share their process with other souls, right? And then suddenly this creates a bit of a movement and people want more of that. It becomes something that I want to be addicted to, something like that. Like, oh, wow, these are some awesome people that are paving the way for something very positive. And so I want to get behind that and I want to support that. And Gardenhouse Records is precisely that. It's like the vision of giving artists who are actually doing this very deep inner work, giving them the possibility and the opportunity to record it in a very professional way as well, something that could compete in a market as well. Like you said, we're not doing entirely for profit, but hopefully I'd love to see the artists that I produce make tons of money one day and take care of their families doing the things that they love, and even for myself. And so Gardenhouse Records has that intention of providing a space for artists to express their truth and their healing and offer that to other people, while also, staying true to these values that we're talking about, positive messages and things that uplift and help us grow.
It's super beautiful. And I want to, ask you a ton about, Gardenhouse and Gardenfest. And, but first I want to ask you, because you mentioned something with film, film is, we're constantly put towards it and we're constantly, and it is a distraction and there is some type of, energy exchange going on there, with the TV and the sound waves and the way of, what's going on with the actual, the technology. But is it art? A lot of people consider film art. So like, is it art, or is it just like, is creating the film art but not, can you take it in as art? Like what's the opinion on that?
I mean, yeah, there's beautiful artistry that happens even in like the most negative spaces of film, right? I think the artistic side of things is how we put it all together and how we're capable of creating and embodying, a character, right, in a movie. And there's so much beauty behind that, right? I feel like when there's a loss of balance, then it loses its power as art. And that's my own personal opinion. So what I mean from that is the tails, the tips of the scale are super off balance when it comes to art. And like I said, so the art that's being created today, if you look at most of what's coming out on TV and movies, it's like, it's violence, it's extreme horror or gore and things like that.
So
or like
much horror
glorifying
lately, dude.
gangsters and
Yeah.
drug dealers, right? And like that's most of like the series you see on TV now. It's like, oh, the drug dealer or the mass murderer or things like that. And so when I look at these things, I question that. And I said, well, why is this the thing that we're glorifying? Like, why are we spending 50 hours of TV watching about like this mass murderer's insanity? And like, that's the stuff that we're promoting the most. And so that can still be done in very artistic ways. But what I feel is if this is the only thing or the main thing that's being promoted, then, like, yes, it's still art. And it can still be like, you could have a lot of people sit down and the very producers and the actors that are involved in it, they're all going to tell you, hey, this is art. And the only reason why we're doing this is because it's art. that's cool. But then there's also millions of dollars being made because people want that kind of morbid, gory, sexual, violent, like, and it's all influenced by, military endeavors and things like that, so that it's slowly being programmed into your psyche that like war is okay because we watch all these war movies all the time. So it's just so normal for us to see that. And then the justification is, oh, well, that's art, right? And so, yes, is it art? It can be, but do I personally feel that that is what I want to be watching all the time? No, because there's so many other things that we can glorify instead of violence and death and horror and all of these things that are creating more minds that think in that way, So like every time I'm playing Call of Duty or whatever in my video games too, I'm so desensitized to the fact that I'm just promoting death and killing and invasions into countries and stuff that we're still seeing in this world that is not okay. And like if we don't speak out against that too, it's like I can say, yeah, well, it's art and that's okay. But like, no, I don't think it's okay that my kids are being exposed to these things and that we are told it's okay and that, they can watch these things. It's just a movie, right? But it's not. And you see how all of these things also influence people in ways where then you have people shooting up schools and doing all this crazy stuff because of the very culture that's being given to them, right? And so I think, like, yes, art is going to have all these different forms in which it is expressed. Where I want to gravitate to as an artist, as a father especially too, like now that I have kids, maybe 5 years ago I wouldn't have cared. And I'd be like, yeah, to each their own and things like that. But I don't want my kids to be bombarded by this and exposed to this. So it's my responsibility too, as a father, to not control in the, in that fashion, but like to curate what,
Create.
yeah, and to curate what they watch and what they're exposed to. So like I could put my kids in front of a TV all day and let them watch YouTube and not care about what comes through in their feed, right? Which is what a lot of parents are sadly forced to do in today's society because they have to work and all of these things. So let's not even look at like, okay, it's bad parenting. It's just the way that we live in the society we live in.
Society we live in, yeah, 100%.
But then if you have a media who's irresponsible and is putting these things in
On
front,
purpose.
on
Yeah,
purpose in front
yeah.
of kids, it's a different story. When I was 10 years old and stuff like that, my parents would go to work and some days I'd skip school because they would leave before me and I'd be like, well, I'm just going to stay home and watch TV. And then I'd watch like the morning programs and things like that kids are supposed to watch too. And there's a lot of things that I probably shouldn't have been watching. And that's like on public TV at that time, right? So when I think about that, I do see like, yes, we can justify art in so many ways, but that very art, if you realize how much art moves culture and how cultures are defined a lot by the art, like if you look at Egyptian culture, the way that you understand Egyptian culture is through their art and the things that have been left behind, right? And then you get a glimpse into their culture of how that was. So if, 100, 200 years from now, the future generations come back and look at the culture of this society that we live in, that is the culture. The culture is violence. The culture is sex, drugs, rock and roll, like that is the culture that's being promoted through the art. So for me, is that art or is there something deeper there that has an agenda? And I don't know, but I feel in my gut and in my intuition that there's something deeper that we can become aware of just by starting to see, okay, what is this message and why is it being put in front of us at all times, right? Why is it that on the news, all we see is death, destruction, more invasions, more war, but we don't really get the beautiful stories of like great people who donated to the food pantry or whatever, right? Like people who are also on a daily basis doing amazing things that are positive for the world, but none of that is, reported in our media. Or if it is, it's just like a blip in between all of the violence, in between all of the fear that we're getting.
Yep.
So yeah, I do feel like we're in a world that is being driven culturally through things like art in ways that are not necessarily positive for, a sustainable form of living in a future where we can all actually get along and share this planet without all of the things that we're seeing today, with all of the fighting over religion, fighting over land, fighting over money and power. I do believe in a society that can move away from those things just by understanding the abundance that we live in on this planet. And it comes from healing these deeper traumas as a whole, right? Like as a society in general, the deeper traumas that led to where we are today as well that need to be acknowledged. And then from that place, you know, it's not about pointing fingers and saying, oh, well, everybody in the media needs to crash and burn and, you know, they need to hang. It's more like these people need healing. They need to understand that what they've been doing hasn't been necessarily good for us on a spiritual level, right? Maybe we have a lot of money and cars and mansions and things like that, but spiritually, people are dying, you know, and this is something that I see more and more. The more connected we are to these devices and the phones and everything, the less connected we are to each other and to nature. And so I do feel like there's a huge decline in culture, a huge decline in like what art is and our interpretations of it. And it's more about money and how much profit it can be made from that. And that's what's going to determine what is art today, is how much money we can make off of it. So yeah, Gardenhouse Records isn't about that. It's not about just putting out songs so that one day we have a hit and make millions of dollars. It's more about a spiritual process of helping people on their journey as well, to share our stories so that maybe they're inspired to, you know, follow their path, to find their passions, to find their art that will help them heal. And I feel like art in general is one of the most important tools that we can bring to the table for healing in so many aspects.
Let me introduce you to Elevate, a premium functional mushroom company focused on supporting your highest potential. They offer a range of powerful supplements crafted from the finest medicinal fungi designed to naturally enhance your well-being. Elevate carries everything from mushroom tinctures, capsules, and teas to their delicious mushroom-infused coffees. All of their products are made with USA-grown mushrooms and contain only wild medicinal mushrooms, no psychoactive compounds. I personally use their Focus Tincture every day and love their chai tea blend. It's my go-to for a calming yet energizing boost. Elevate's products support mental clarity, immunity, and overall vitality. They ship nationwide, so whether you're new to functional mushrooms or already a fan, Elevate has something for you. Check them out at shopelevatemushrooms.com, where you will find a detailed description of each product and experience the difference for yourself. Yeah, I feel like with my, you know, like I said, I've had some exposure to you guys with Gardenfest, and I think you're definitely doing that, because like I've seen people who, you know, who go up and play music, who are they're really working on their craft. You know, they want to get better, and they feel empowered to do it, and you know, and you create like an inclusive environment, you know, where everybody, you know, feels like they can dance with each other and talk with each other, and you know, how does that get built? You know, how does that get built? You know, where you're, you know, you have all these different all these different people that are coming together that you know, want to participate in community. You know, how does that get built?
Well, I think there's a mixture of different things that happen in that space of, you know, particularly in Gardenfest and in the community that we've built around Gardenfest. You know, it's like a perfect storm of people who are on their healing journey, right? Like, and it starts a lot with plant medicine and ceremonies and the communities in the New England area, basically, where, you know, there's a lot of plant medicine, you know, popping up and churches, you know, and things like that, where people are able to do this in a legal, safe setting and sit with these medicines and explore their consciousness through it. And that brings tremendous amounts of healing. And I feel like the healing that has brought collectively in the many, like, we're going to call them tribes, right? Like the many communities that have had their experiences, it has tied together in a way where, you know, a lot of the music has been what has moved through the communities, through ceremonies, and then that has opened up things in other people. So, for example, the first artist that I recorded at Gardenhouse Records, or kind of like the foundation of Gardenhouse Records, was recording my brother Doug Wilder. And I met Doug at a ceremony. And then after ceremony, you know, he was touched by the music and touched by the message that I had. And the same thing with brother Steve Lyon. And I met Nate through the same kind of movement of being in ceremonies. And Doug was inspired to share his music with me after that and say, hey, you know, here's my songs. He didn't say record or anything, but he's like, hey, can I share some of my music with you? And when he did share it and I heard it, I was like, wow, there's a message here. And this is really cool and really beautiful. And I want to record this and I want to help you, you know? And that started this journey of like, hey, come over to my house. And, you know, very limited equipment, started from the bottom. Now we're on the top.
Yeah, hell yeah.
We're on our way to the top.
Yeah,
but,
baby.
it yeah, it just became
I think
that.
we're there.
Huh?
I think we're there.
Oh, we're there, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The moment my babies were born, I was already there. I was like, this is it.
Yep. Exactly.
But we started in that way of like very grassroots, just, let's record this for the fun of it. And also because there was this urgency to like, you have such a beautiful message, Doug. I really want to share this with people, and like for my own self too, because when I heard it, I was like, wow, this is very healing for me. So I wanted to record it for me. It was a very selfish thing too, because I was like, this is going to help my own journey if I have this mantra, right? This song to like repeat in my life. And then suddenly you have these songs start to pop up, and these artists, I start to share it with the people that in my network, he starts to share it, and it starts to become something that people actually want to listen to. And then little by little, this becomes a community of people who start to come to a show. And so long story short, after that, maybe like a year later, I meet Nate, maybe not too much later after that. And, Nate Jones he still lives, well, now he's in South Carolina and North Carolina, but I was living in Rhode Island back then. And so was he. And he had heard my song in like a ceremony as well. So he figured out and asked, who's this guy that I just heard in that Phoenix song? And he finally figures out my name. He looks me up, and we live 20 minutes away from each other. And so he hits me up and he's like, hey, I'm Nate Jones. Let's get together, blah, blah, blah. And so that's kind of how that connection started too, where, turned out he was 20 minutes away from my house. So I came to one of his, jams at the house, and that was history kind of thing. And from there it was like, yeah, let's start a band. And so we created Gardenhouse Collective, which is like the band. And back then it started with Rhys Simpson and Steve Lyon and really beautiful people. And shortly after that, so my whole journey with plant medicine too had also been a journey of like visions and things that had come to me in these very deep states. And one of the visions that I had received was, was Mike Love, this awesome, amazing Hawaiian reggae artist that's up and coming now. And he's, his music is tremendously powerful. And Paul Isaac and Nako Bear was there too. And so there were all these cool artists, and I was there with them. And I was playing music with them. It was so vivid. And that stayed with me. And I said, I have to create something for them to come to me so that I can play for them, because I really want to share with them the music that I'm making, because the way that they touched me is what's inspiring what I'm making. So I want to create a platform for them to come listen to me, because it's going to be hard for me to go knock on their door. And so that vision came forth, and then I talked to Nate about it, and I said, Nate, here's an idea. What if like Gardenhouse Records, what we're creating now, just becomes this thing, becomes the festival? So kind of the way that I told him was, instead of us trying to go look for the party, we become the party, and people want to come to us instead. And that's kind of the dream of how it became a real thing was, Nate, let's do this ourselves. And so Nate's a go-getter, and he's an awesome, manifester that just makes things happen. And it took him less than a couple months to be like, hey, I talked to Paul Isaac. I just met him in Hawaii, and he's down to do Gardenfest. And, boom, 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 things happen. And we had our first Gardenfest in New Hampshire. And that was amazing. It was our, first endeavor into that, maybe like 100 people at the Hive, and it was raining, and kind of like, it didn't mess things up, but obviously there was less attendance than we expected because of the rain. But even then, it was incredible. And so obviously, round 2 came about, and we brought that to Gray, to the land where we actually hold it now. And again, it started growing. And that year we had, maybe a couple hundred. And last year we had maybe over 300 and plus, And so it's been this growth with Gardenfest that, starts with a dream and actually believing that we're capable of it. And then we've been blessed in the community to have all these artists within the community too, that have so much magic. So like, it's cool to bring Paul Isaac, and it's cool to bring Mike Love and these big names to our events, but it's also amazing to see the growth in our local artists and to create a movement around that, around local artists, and to be able to, fill up, 100 people at a little stage and things like that, in a world where like independent music is really hard to get something going. Like if you have a cover band, you're going to fill that theater up in no time. But original music doesn't have that kind of backing unless there's something special about it. And I think that this organization, this movement, and what we're creating, and the artists that have gathered around this, have something tremendously special to offer the world. And it so happens that we're gathering, you know, all of us. And that creates a ripple that's way beyond what I can even imagine. So like when we gather at Gardenfest and you have 300 or 400 people singing and chanting love for 4 days, imagine the effects of that it has not only in their lives, but on the land, just like in general, the ripple effect of 500, 400 people screaming love, singing love, and sharing love. And, you know, we don't only just do music, there's workshops and there's people who come and speak about different topics. Sustainability and permaculture is one of the things that we are very strong and intentional with, bringing that as well to people, information on how to live in a more sustainable way. And so we have speakers and teachers and educators that also come and share their wisdom in that realm, because, you know, art and culture is a very important part of the future, but also sustainability and how can we find greener, cleaner ways to also sustain ourselves, right, and work as a society. So it involves that, and it also involves native wisdom, you know, indigenous teachers from different walks, both plant medicine and Lakota. So we have, you know, sweat lodges on on the land and things like that, where people have access to all of these different approaches, you know, holistic medicines, massage therapy, Reiki, like all of these alternative forms of healing as well. Plant medicine. You have so many different avenues with which people, when they come to Gardenfest, can get a glimpse into, you know, wow, there's all of these different ways that I can access my own healing, and a larger community of people who are already pretty rooted in their disciplines, right? And that's also incredible to walk into a place where it's like, oh, I need a Reiki guy. There's your Reiki. I need a massage therapist. Oh, there's your guy. I need cannabis. This, you know, I need a ceremony. Here's the guy. And that's also been amazing to like just bring together these bigger tribal communities that have been in their own journeys of self-discovery and plant medicine and learning how to grow together, and also create a hub for where we all can come together and create this unity and create a kind of like a standard of we can all get together, we can all get along. And like, right, this is what Woodstock was wanting to create, and they did it quite successfully, you know, like 3 days of peace and love, and they had 500,000 people. And, you know, those are the things that come together so magically that create that, right? And so for me, Gardenfest is something like that, but in its own fashion. And you asked something earlier about like the difference between, you know, a giant festival with tens and thousands of people and something like Gardenfest, which is a little more grassroots. And I think because of where we are and how the size of Gardenfest is, it also allows for a deeper transformational effect to happen in people because of, you know, what you were saying earlier, where, you know, if there's only a few hundred people, it's easier for me to connect. It's easier for me to feel into that and to create more of a sense of community than maybe with like 10,000 people, and it's less personal and it's less direct. So I think that also creates a space for like very deep transformation, which is very rare and yeah, very special at the same time, because we're living in a time where we're almost afraid to be ourselves in many ways, because we have to, you know, try to make it on Instagram, or, you know, so I have to portray myself in a way that isn't always entirely who I am. And I think Gardenfest is an invitation, when people show up to something like that, to be their fullest, most beautiful self, with no judgment, with no, you know, fear. Like you were saying, like everybody can just dance and be themselves, and it's very inclusive in that way. And I think that's the part that
Go swimming in the creek.
And the part that makes me the most happy is that we've created a space that does help people feel safe to be themselves, to explore themselves, to do so in a responsible way as well, you know. And we're constantly also trying to include the kids and the families as much as we can too, right? It's not just a transformational hippie festival filled with psychedelics and drugs and things like that. It's way deeper than that. You know, my kids come to this, and I have two babies, and I want them to be exposed.
Grow up in it.
To grow up in something that's healthy too, not just a bunch of grown-ups doing
drugs for a weekend. Yeah, no way. Exactly. Yeah. It's not, you know, it's not about that. You know, I feel that, you know, like I said, I would feel comfortable bringing my son there 100%, because I think that it feels inclusive. It feels like there's safe space for him. You know, at some point, like say if you're staying over, maybe there's a point where, you know, late night where the kids naturally would go to bed anyways, and that's a normal, natural thing. And but it's like it's a really beautiful experience at what you're talking about and what you've cultivated and created. And there's something too, like to your point, you're interacting with the music and you're interacting with the musicians. So like there's that bit to it too, because it's a smaller festival, whatever, 500 people, and you're interacting with all the people, you're interacting with musicians, you're interacting with with everybody, and everyone's there to like, to it's just different. It's just different, and it does. When I've gone, I do feel like there is an invitation to fully be myself. This guy who wants to make people feel good through through my dance and feel good through my energy and just being around me. Like that's the thing that I like to exude and I like to be able to express, and not in every environment, obviously, but when I get to do it in full, it's like it's so beautiful because it's powerful and it has effect on me and it has effect on other people, and I love to see it and I love to play with it and I love to mess around and just be in it, and it brings me so present, and that you guys create that, your event creates that for me. It's why I'm grateful, I'm grateful to you for it.
Thank you. Yeah. And I'm grateful to all the people who make it, right? Because like it's not just me or just Nate. It's everybody that comes in attendance and the musicians, and like everything is like the perfect storm. Like I said before, it's like every single aspect that needs to come into alignment for this to create the magic that you speak of comes together. And that's what I'm grateful for, is like that the people who feel it in their hearts to be a part of this, they come and they're not afraid to also express that which you're talking about, which is their own truest self. And yes, the musicians and the organization give people the permission to do that in a way in which like the music is expressed in ways where it's not like we're on stage saying, hey, you guys have permission to be yourselves, right? It's like the guy who's on stage who's allowing him or herself to be themselves in that moment is the invitation, right? Mm-hmm. Like as silly as I can get on stage or whatever that looks like, just like me not being afraid to be myself is that invitation to help you not be afraid of yourself. And definitely that's what we're striving for in Gardenfest, is also, through the artists, right? And like the way that we're cultivating the music that the artists create to like believe in their own selves too, right? And I get a lot of artists at Gardenhouse that aren't necessarily professional musicians, but rather people who picked up the guitar and started, to fall in love with this craft. And turns out they do have some talent and they do have some, great lyrics and things like that. But it also comes with like, oh, well, I'm not a musician, right? Like I'm not a professional musician. And so that can come with a lot of doubt, and that can come with a lot of, like wanting to not really share. So being able to allow your artist and create spaces that help them feel safe, so that when in production, when you're recording the music too, you have this confidence of like, wow, this song is actually really special and I'm trying to really convey something powerful here. So from that confidence that I have in my own song, that's transmitted into the vibration of the music. And then you're hearing that music and that allows you to feel the same things. And so again, it falls into vibration, and how that is so powerfully, it affects us in such powerful ways that we're sometimes not even aware of it. It's like, oh, why am I dancing to this song? Well, because the vibration is giving you permission to do it, right? And like it's guiding you into that realm of like, oh, freedom, right? And if somebody's coming with that intention, you're going to receive that vibration, right? And then it's a lot easier for you to break out of your I'm not capable, right? Yeah. Mindset of things like that. It
can't just be sound though, because I what you're saying is, when it happens, right? It usually starts with the music, but then guess what happens next? My ability to dance and my being myself, the confidence, like you said, the confidence gets instilled by me, by the person who's giving confidence. Then I come out and I exude that same confidence, and it's reflected back in the person making music with me. So anytime that I'm dancing with somebody, especially in a small setting, the music is going to get deeper and improve. They're going to become like, that's just what I feel. I feel like they are now, they're more excited to play for the crowd because they see somebody who's dancing for
Absolutely.
them. They feel connected to it. So the more of them comes out, and it's like this beautiful positive feedback loop that just the more people who do it, the more that it's going to happen, and and I see that too. The more that I dance, and the person who starts playing but music, and then more people come and dance, and more people come around, and more, and it becomes this beautiful thing of energy, positive energy. So it's just amazing how like it. I just wonder, because it's sound energy, like what you're talking about, the vibration, but then there's got to be another piece to it that.
There's probably, yes, that, like the soul, right?
Yeah.
Like I would call it the soul energy, if anything. Like I'm not don't have all the terms for things.
Of course.
But of course it's that. It's like I'm vibing off of your vibration, like your soul. And then as an artist, like you said, yes, if I'm seeing that person start to move their body, that energy is coming right back to me in ways that I'm going to uplift too. So there's a symbiosis there that happens, right? Like we're feeding off each other.
So cool.
And we're feeding off each other's energy. And it's amazing to witness that, how like, you know, that first person to come up and dance is like, that person made the party, not necessarily the musician, right? Like, because you start the party by dancing and then I'm ready to play even better for you, you know, because I'm feeding off of that. So it's as important, the energy that you bring too, right? As audience, as the person who's listening and as the person who's dancing, it's just as important as what I'm bringing to the table for that magic to happen, right? Like I could come and play my best songs with the best intention, but if your heart's not open and ready to receive too, then that can only be a one-sided thing at times too, where I'm like, I've been at bars, you know, like back in the day when I started playing bars, and you're playing for people who are drunk, and you know, sometimes it lands well, sometimes it doesn't even land at all, and you have those moments where like, man, I just played my heart out and nothing, you know, it's crickets, because people aren't open enough to that. And so I think Gardenfest does create this very deep heart opening that is intentional. So like we start our festival in ceremony, right? Getting people together in a circle, gathering, praying to the directions, you know, like honoring the ancestors, honoring the native traditions of the land and the natives of the land. And from that place with that much reverence, you're bound to create some magic, you know? And so like everybody is almost agreeing in that moment in these opening ceremonies that happen at these festivals. Everybody's agreeing to raise the vibration. Everybody's agreeing to show up in their best form, in their highest self, right? And like their least fearful version of themselves, so that the magic that I'm trying to bring to you through the music is going to be reciprocated. And then we create this fire that's really beautiful. And we all leave that festival with this soul ignited, right? Of like, oh, I'm ready to create. I'm ready to go pursue my passion. And I'm ready to, you know, move into my part of my role in this world, right? And how I'm supposed to fit in it. And I think Gardenfest allows spaces for that too, for people to discover like, hey, what is my part in this awakening, in this shift, and all of these things that are happening in the world? Like, what is our part? And when you see all these great artists come together, and musicians and producers, and you get tremendously inspired by that. And even then, I've noticed, you know, since we started our first Gardenfest, I've had infinite calls of like people like, hey, I've got these songs that I'm writing now, you know, like, what can I do? What would you recommend? And like, I'm inspired. I want to write more songs and I'd love to come record. And, you know, it does create this need for people to say, well, I want to do that too. And I want to be a part of this. And I want to share my magic, you know, and I want to encourage that as much as I can for people to actually dive into it and tap into it and lose the fear of like, am I going to be any good? Am I going to be famous? Is like, it doesn't matter. Your soul is calling. If it's calling to create and it's calling to bring something forth and you're inspired, go for it without the expectations of everything in between. It's just your soul needs to create. So let that soul create. Let that soul bring forth something beautiful.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's a beautiful sentiment, and you guys are executing it. So I'm glad to be a part of it. Now you're doing something new, right? With Gardenfest this year. It's for the first time.
Yeah, so we have a spin-off event that is called Equinox Awakening. So Gardenfest presents Equinox Awakening, and we've partnered up with the Chocolate Church Art Center in Bath, Maine. So they're a really amazing nonprofit organization, and it's a revamped old church, and it's a capacity for about 330 people. So this is actually really big for us in the sense of like having a big stage, and it's like a multi-purpose venue where we're going to have vendors and some workshops and focus, a full day of music for people. So it'll start at midday and go into the night pretty much. We have over 10 artists that are going to be performing their music, both local. And we have Sierra Marin, who's coming out from California, and she's been putting out some amazing, awesome music alongside people like Mike Love and Paul Isaac. And so it just all falls in line with, the direction that we've been taking the music that we want to promote with, and just anchoring in an event that gives people the opportunity to kind of break up that harsh winter that sometimes, gets to us, right? And just creating an event where, in sight of what's happening in Labor Day, which is our Gardenfest main event that happens in Gray, kind of like, here's a little pregame and a little bit of like, here's the light right before the spring. So it's like, it's called Equinox Awakening because it's right at spring equinox, and kind of inviting in the feminine energies of blossoming into the warmth of the summer and the celebration that comes, in the summer for Gardenfest. So it's a really great opportunity for us to also bring our magic that happens outdoors into an indoor venue, into like a more city vibe, right? And like, because we want to just do our thing sometimes and go to the woods and get away from people and live that utopia for a bit. But a part of me is also like, how do we anchor that back into everyone else who hasn't been exposed to this yet? And for me, that's something that's really important, is that community outreach, to be able to reach people who aren't perhaps a part of, psychedelic communities or medicine communities or, things like this, and give them an opportunity to see outside of what they even may think this all is, right? Like, people probably listen and say, oh, plant medicine or psychedelics, and they're like, oh, that's a bunch of drug addicts. And that may be the thing, right, that comes to mind first. But when you come to one of our events and you see what we're actually about, you get a completely different spectrum of what this is. And it's way beyond just the plants and the medicine and things like that. Those are things that inspire this, but it's much deeper than that. And it has everything to do with creating heartfelt art and, getting back to nature and getting closer to the earth. So yeah, March 22nd is the date for our Equinox Awakening, and that's going to happen in Bath in Maine at the Chocolate Church. And so, people can go to chocolatechurcharts.org or gardenhouserecords.com and find tickets there, and also kind of stay in the loop as to what we're doing through Gardenhouse Records and, the upcoming garden fests and things like that.
Yeah, guys, follow, subscribe to Garden House, check it out. Definitely get over to the Bath Church for the Equinox Awakening. I'll be there. I'll see you guys there. It's just an opportunity to get together in community and do some dancing to people who are, putting out good vibrational music. And when you get to do that, like, it's great to listen to it through a phone or through a type of listening device or whatever. But, when you get to do it in person, there's really something. That's what I've learned from this show and doing this, is like, when you get somebody in person, this is what I'm addicted to, is like, people in this world, they don't, to give you their attention is a very hard thing. We're very distracted, so here I get to, kidnap, capture people for 2 hours, 3 hours. We can't pick up their phone, they have to sit with me and talk and get into it, and so it's, I just being in person and getting to do that, and I think too, like, March is perfect. People need a little giddy up. They need to know that the light is coming. They've just gone through some. Here in the Northeast, they've just gone through some some growth period where they've been underground, hermiting a little bit, getting ready to come out and grow for this, grow with the sun and the season. And so it's just wonderful. Is it just going to be music, or will there be other things that are being offered there?
Yeah, we have a few speakers and things like that as well. We're not getting deep into workshops, but we will have permatours, which are some friends of ours, and they're all about permaculture and sustainability. So they'll be doing some planting of seeds. It's just the beginning of the spring, so we're not necessarily getting our hands deep into the earth just yet, but we're at least getting started. And that's the whole point of the equinox. It's like planting the seeds for what's coming. And and so that's part of what the workshops will include, is permatours offering some sort of seed planting offering for everybody to come and experience that, learn a little bit about the process, and we'll definitely have vendors and people exposing some of their, their art and things like that. We'll have speakers on different accounts of, hopefully we'll have you on the stage as well. And we have, I've got a West African drummer. His name is Namore. He's going to come and talk about his experience as a drum master and, so on and so forth. We have a lot of really cool people who are going to come and share their experience in permaculture and things like that. The people at the Chocolate Church as well will probably be sharing a little bit about what their mission is as a Center for Arts as well in Bath, and what they promote and how they help the community and how they bring in their magic. So it's a really beautiful partnership as well that has just brought together a whole community of people that want to share their magic, that want to share their wisdom. And so it's going to be a great place to come and learn about different things, plant medicine, music, art, holistic approaches to different,
self-empowerment,
different forms of healing. And so if you're a seeker in that realm, you're going to find so many amazing things coming from that.
Yeah, I get to meet some really cool people and just have a really great experience. You know, I can't recommend it enough, guys. Definitely try to get over there and check it out, and also start to look out for the Labor Day Garden Fest, because that's something that I've only come for a day. You know, in the past couple of years, I've done a day, just one day. I've never stayed over
Okay.
with you guys. You
Ah,
know, and so I'm excited to do that and take in the full experience. I'm gonna definitely try to make that happen this year.
this will be the year for you
This will
then.
be the year.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I can't wait. It's gonna be awesome.
Right on, brother.
Just really fascinating, man. And I'm so grateful to you for for playing your music and for getting it up.
Yeah, man. No, I'm grateful for you for listening, because without you, that it's only a one-way thing, and so
Yeah.
like I, as much as I make it for myself, I make it for you, right? Like I
Yeah.
make it for somebody else to be able to listen to it and be inspired by it. So,
Yeah.
I've always said, for me, success is way beyond like how much money or how much, material things I can gain. For me, success is if I can successfully open your heart, like, and invite you to do the same, and to find your own passion and to find your own creative, life source that's also going to go and inspire the next person, then I'm already super successful. For me, that's the most important thing, is if I can bring that sort of inspiration to another person, then I can die a happy man, and I feel like that's my mission on this world. And funny enough, even my astrology chart says it, it's like somewhere along the lines of like, I'm not meant to be the one in the spotlight, but rather the one who helps others into the spotlight. And so here I am, like really embracing that. And as a producer as well, that's something that I've really fallen in love with, is how much can I do for someone else on their journey, right? And like that's like Dharma stuff too, where I think in Buddhism, or one of the philosophies of Asia, they talk about, if you want something for yourself, the best way to achieve things like that is to help others on their journey to that very same thing. So it's not that I did it on purpose either. It's just kind of happened. And then I learned about it and I was like, oh, cool. I get it. I get why I gravitate towards wanting to help others too, because it does make me a better musician, a better human being overall. It's like doing that work for no money, just for the love and the passion of it, is also for me something that's really important, because I can be true to the music without having to worry about like, well, is this going to sell records? It's like more, is this true to the art that we're trying to make? And there's a huge difference there between creating art for money and art for art, and passion. So hopefully that is translated, and it seems that at least with yourself it is. And I hope that it keeps to translate into that for people to, when they come and listen to the music, that they get inspired, that they feel inspired to go and love some more, and love harder and love deeper and love themselves deeper, right? Because the more deeply that I can love myself, the more deeply I show up for my crafts and the things that I love. And it is shown, right? Like it shows, and then other people will pick up on that. It's a vibrational thing. So like, if you haven't made it with your music, maybe you should start looking into what it is that you're conveying and what it is that you're saying, right? Like, and I bring that to artists in general. Like, if your music is not necessarily attractive, is it because you're trying to make music to attract people? Are you being honest with yourself? Are you being honest with your lyrics? Are you being truthful with your music? Or are you just trying to cater to something that you think people want, right? And I think there's a huge difference there. So I always invite people to, if you're going to create, like, stay as true as you can to yourself, and don't create for the person out there. Create for you first, and create for what's coming true, what's truth for the muse, right? Like the spirit, the Spaniards, they call it el duende, the leprechaun. It's like the spirit of creation, right? Like that creative spark that happens within us. And so how can I be true to that versus implanting my own beliefs into that of what I think people want, think people need, rather than like, this is what the music is asking for. This is what my spirit is actually trying to say. And some people may like it, some people may not, but I want to stay as true as that as I can.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's beautiful, and I I invite you now to create here a little bit, and to maybe play us a little bit of music, and share that song Phoenix with us. That would be wonderful, because I everything that you're talking about, I think that my audience and myself, we get it, we understand it, we want it, we want to be able to be connected with each other and be connected to the music, and let's get it up.
Right on. Cool. So yeah, let me just move this here. Yeah, so this song is called Phoenix, and it's off my first album, Children of the Light. seems like the end. Shadows come to take your mind. Overwhelmed, lost in time. Troubles keep you down till you can't get out of bed. Feeling lonely, stuck in your head. Have you forgotten where you come from, who you are? You're a goddess. Rise, rise, fly into the light. Rise, rise, fly into the light. Like a phoenix from the ashes, your eyes. Like a phoenix from the ashes, your eyes. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. 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 Take a look around. Life is all you'll find. Give thanks and praise. You breathe another day. Do you remember? You're the phoenix. Now your eyes from the darkness. Rise, rise, fly into the light. Rise, rise, fly into the light. Like a phoenix from the ashes, your eyes. Like a phoenix from the ashes, your eyes. Like a phoenix from the ashes, your eyes. Like a phoenix from the ashes, your eyes.
Brother. Wow, man. You know what? what an effect, like you say, that the musical, now that we've talked about it for, some time here, and, we kind of shared like what the intention of the song was before and how you went about the writing process. Like, I feel like my whole body is vibrating right now. It's really cool. And I can feel the music within me. Like,
Nice.
wow, what a really wonderful song, and really wonderful, playing of the guitar, and just, wow.
Thank you, brother. Yeah, this is like I said, it's been a lifetime and a life's journey and labor of love, and constantly looking inside and trying to be as truthful as I can with myself, with the music, and trying to get out of the way as much as I can so that spirit can come through, right? And that's another very important part of how I view music. Is I view myself as a channel, as an open source for spirit to come through, and to allow myself to be embodied by that divine spirit that is within all of us and within everything, and to create a container that's safe for it to come through and share something that can hopefully, move people's bodies and move people's energy in ways that inspire them. And so I'm just grateful for the opportunity. I'm grateful for the invitation to be able to share this with you, with your audience. And, I'm hopeful that this is just the beginning of something really beautiful that can inspire more people to do what I'm doing, and hopefully continue this process of awakening for so many that really need it in a world that seems very dark at the time. But I have a lot of hope that even in all this darkness that we're being shown, that the light will always prevail. Like Haile Selassie said, that we know that we shall win because we are confident in the victory of good over evil. So I really strongly adhere to that as well.
I think we're going to win.
We've already won.
We've already won, man. We've already won. Freddie, I appreciate you so much for coming on the show today. It's really been an awesome journey. I can't wait to listen to more of your music. I can't wait to listen to that song again on the 22nd of March at the Chocolate Church in Bath. Please, guys, come and join me. Please follow Freddie. Where can the people find you personally? I know you've talked about Gardenhouse, but where can people find you?
Yeah, so my Instagram, Freddy Larrosa Official, is a good place to follow me, and my music can be found. So I'm actually in the process of changing a few things. So right now you can find me as just Larrosa, just my last name, but I think within the next couple of weeks or so, I'm changing it to Freddy Larrosa for purposes of, there's another artist with that very same name that makes music that's nothing like I want to make. So I just want to kind of differentiate that. So right now you can find my debut album, Children of the Light, on Spotify and most digital platforms. And I'm working on my second album right now. I don't have a date for any of that, but singles will be coming out soon. I think by March, before Equinox Awakening, there'll probably be a little surprise in Spotify as Freddy Larrosa, as, just kind of shifting into the fullness of that. But yeah, you can find my album on Spotify. It's called Children of the Light. And that song particularly is called Phoenix. And yeah, stay tuned for a lot more music and collaborations and things coming out of Gardenhouse Records. So yeah, if you want to learn more about all the things that are happening, again, you can also go to gardenhouserecords.com, and that's where you're going to find the hub for not just myself, but all the artists that work within Gardenhouse Records as well. And so that's also slowly being built. It's already there, but it's an ongoing project of being able to update it with all our artists and everything that's coming together. So yeah, thank you for the space. And I really hope to see people come to the Equinox Awakening, because it's going to be so much fun. It's going to be, I don't say life-changing. I like to say life-expanding, because life is already awesome and abundant. I don't need to change it. I just want to expand into greater things and more beautiful things. So the invitation is there for, all of your listeners and audience as well to come and join us. And again, just very grateful for the opportunity to be able to share a bit about the process and why we're here and what we're doing.
Yeah, of course. Please, guys, please come join us at the Chocolate Church. I want to ask quick. Would you play one more song for us to end us out? Or
yeah, I got you.
Okay, yeah, guys, that's how we're gonna end out today. We're gonna do another song here. Maybe Children of the Light.
Right on. Okay.
Just if I could throw in a request. It's a beautiful song that I love to hear. So Freddie, thank you so much. You know, man, you're awesome. You know, what you're doing is so important. I can't wait for my child to be able to hear this podcast someday, to see about the work that you're doing, and you know how you know, intimately involved I believe in it. And so, thank you.
I hope, brother. Thank you.
I
Thank
hope,
you for
baby.
the
Giddy
space.
up.
Yeah, man.
A little giddy up here, baby.
Gather round the fire burning into the night. A subtle drum controls your heartbeat. The wind, it gathers wisdom from the light. Freedom calls when souls come together in love. Yourself from the prison that's in your mind. I see your eyes, they're lost behind the smiles. You start to cry. But no, you're not alone. Your wandering soul can count on I and I. Jah knows we've suffered, and the roads we walk will make us wise. Remember who you are, remember you're the light. You are divine. You are the stars, you are the sun, you are the moonlight, you're the one who'll bring you closer to the sky. Feel how the rhythms they collide. So dry your eyes and live your life. Open your wings and learn to fly. Children of the light. Life sparked in me through death, a man in his last breath. Touch my chest, now he rests, eternal, glorious, surrounded in divine white light. No pain, no mind games, no more rat race. You embraced the reaper, you were ready to go. The fire in your eyes died as you ignited our souls. It's crazy how it goes. One wave crashes, another one flows. I guess that's life, but no one really knows until you row and row your boats down the stream of this rabbit hole. Take a leap of faith till you're no longer physical. It's critical when we break away from fear. The illusion of death and separation disappears. So be here now, cause you're infinite, your sound. Don't wait till you're 6 feet underground. Life is the game you make, so take the reins, create, be grateful for the presence of the present time. You are the greatest story ever told. So raise your hands in glory and behold the miracle of life as it unfolds before your eyes. Oh, don't waste away your time. Come back to the night. You are divine. No, no, no. You are the stars. You are the sun. You are the moonlight. You're the one who'll bring you closer to the sky. Feel how the rhythms they collide. So dry your eyes and live your life. Open your wings and learn to fly. Children of the light. Children of the light. Rise now. Rise, rise, children, rise. Rise, 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 children, rise.
Giddy up, baby. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.